What happens at laser tag never stays at laser tag.
Laser Unfocused Tag Talk.
Laser Unfocused Tag Talk.
I feel like you could be like in Ghostbusters or something.
Oh my God, you have got some stories.
Let's talk about laser tag.
Who knew you were a laser tag legend?
Time to get laser unfocused. Tag Talk with Tivia.
Welcome to Laser Unfocused Tag Talk. Hi, I'm Tivia. The members of Team USA West have plenty of stories to share after recently becoming the Laserforce Internationals first place champions. So I am delighted to be joined by Team USA West that just recently took first place. They're the first place champions of the 2023 Laserforce Internationals that happened recently in Auckland, New Zealand. And I am so delighted to have you guys with me. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
Having us.
All right. Now, why don't we start by just going around, and could each of you please introduce yourselves and give me your code name and the position that you play?
I'm Death Knight, aka DK for short, and I played medic on the team.
I'm Odin's Fist, and I played Ammo.
I am Kodama, and I played Heavy.
I am Snuffles, and I played Scout.
I'm Thunder, and I played Scout.
I am Slaughtermelon, and I played Commander.
Excellent. And you guys are all pretty much from the western part of the U.S. So you've had some experience together, but you're also from slightly different geographies. A few of you from California, a few of you from Cedar Rapids area, right?
Cedar City.
Cedar City.
It's like southern Utah, yeah.
Excellent. So why don't we just start at the beginning and tell me a little bit about when did you guys decide that you were going to be a team and you were going to make this journey to Auckland? When did it all kind of gel and the beginning of your journey start out?
Well, the start of the journey kind of came last November or so when we had an event in St. George, Utah, so just south of Cedar City. And it was just kind of a for funsies tournament with a draft construction. But a bunch of us were staying in this really nice Airbnb, a literal mansion up on a hill that like 15 of us rented and split the cost on, so it wasn't so bad. And a few of us were just having a conversation about, well, if Nationals is in New Zealand next year, as it was originally meant to be back in 2020, but then there was that whole pandemic thing that sort of delayed the Auckland tournament. But assuming that they were able to coordinate and get the tournament together for 2023, what kind of team from the US we want to send if we thought we had a shot to win, to beat Auckland, the home team, and to beat Brisbane, who are really the heavy hitters in the Laserforce International scene and have won not every tournament, but most of the tournaments that they've been to. And just in kind of conversing with Kodama and Odin's Fist, we're like, well, I think the three of us could work really well together because we had been on a team in 2021 and we gelled pretty well. And I said, if I had to pick up some other players, I would really want Slaughtermelon, Snuffles, Thunder. So we just kind of started kicking it around. Then probably late in the year, maybe December, maybe early January, we sort of put the group together in a group chat and said, hey, what would you guys think of this team? And once we ironed out the details, we said, all right, let's put together some kind of practice schedule. And we actually got together a few times, mostly out in Loveland, Colorado. Thanks to the Loveland guys for hosting us, letting us get in some practice. And then, of course, in the infamous Cedar City sloped stair arena where we had to test out some new concepts. But it was a good, I think, team bonding experience. And then got down to Auckland, not entirely without difficulties, and the rest was history.
It was actually it kind of worked out perfectly because there were a few of us who had separately come up with ideas for the team, and then when we all like got together and started talking about it, it turns out that all of us had the same idea of which 6 players we think we should play with, and it all just kind of once you come together and you realize that, then it's all she wrote.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on the money there. I think all 6 of us, there was no question in any of our minds that we were really the best 6 to pair up together. So,
well, very good.
Everybody on the team, I think, is a very talented player, and I know that there are other U.S. players who maybe wanted to be on this team, but part of the philosophy behind our construction was it's not just about can we get the 6 most individually skilled players, but who is going to work best together. and who is going to be able to communicate and control those other little things that happen in a tournament that don't necessarily just have to do with raw skill. Although I think the 6 of us are pretty good.
That seems fair at this point. Now, how many of you, if any, had already traveled internationally for a Nats like this?
I had.
California people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
all the California.
Yeah.
I guess we have the advantage of being on the coast. It's not a long flight for us.
Yeah, my rowboat was right there. I just paddled on over.
Yeah, I went to my first Nats in Brisbane in 2014, and then the other 2 of you came along in 2018, as I recall.
Yep. That was
Well,
a good time.
that is awesome. And it's cool that some of you had the experience, and for others, it was a first. And from what I understand, there were quite a few firsts that happened at this tournament. So I wonder if you could tell me about some of the firsts that happened over there.
Well, depending on exactly how we divvy up the details. So we're the first American team to beat a full Brisbane team in a neutral arena. Brisbane had lost in a Nats to a US team before, but it was in the US, it was at Detroit's home site arena. So it's just a slightly different context. We're the first American team to win in the Southern Hemisphere. So I thought that was pretty cool. To be able to get trophies in both the Northern and Southern Hemispheres. We're the first, as far as I know, real hybrid team that's not made up of more than 3 players from the same site to win a Nationals. And I would have to double check the data on this because I don't know if we have records anywhere. I think we might be the first team to win a Nats who lost their first game of the tournament.
Excuse me, I'll take credit for that one.
Well, that is going to feed into some questions about the different upsets and things that happened, but that's tremendous. And congratulations to you guys on all of that. That's a really awesome piece of history to own for yourselves. And I know it took a lot of effort to get to this point. So what kinds of things do you do to prepare for a tournament? Obviously, you got together and practiced, but how did that practice translate into bringing the skill set that you did over there?
Yeah, so one of the first things we actually talked about once we got the team together was how are we going to practice? How are we going to get the teamwork in? And how are we going to make this shape up? And so we kind of started by just doing meetings where we would go in every couple of weeks and we would all sit and talk for hours about the game to make sure that we're all on the same page, we all had the same game philosophy and all of that. And then I was thinking, I really just want to play laser tag with everyone and get some reps in. So I started gathering people and I was like, hey, we're going to go to Loveland. We're just going to show up. And so eventually we got a large amount of people to go to Loveland so that we could get like 2 really solid practice nights in. And then we were able to run our team Sands Thunder for a bit and get some reps in and see kind of how we meshed and learn some things because we weren't even settled on our lineup at that point in time. So we kind of wanted to feel things out. And then, yeah, we ended up getting some more practice in when we went for the duos tournament in Loveland, which was March, right?
Yeah.
And then I feel like we all kind of had a good idea of how each other played. We had the meetings, so we had a good concept of like what we wanted to do. So I think even though we only got to get together a couple times, getting those reps in was enough to like put what we talked about into practice. And I think when we showed up in Auckland, I feel like we were pretty much ready to go, aside from some people being a little tired from some flight difficulties leading up to it, but worked out.
Yeah, there was a fair amount of there was a fair amount of like studying the arena for sure, because we had the map of the arena at our disposal. So a lot of our Discord meetings were spent talking about like deployment strategies from the get-go, and what we're gonna do when things aren't going our way, or where we're planning to hold up and stuff like that. A lot of it ended up being edited throughout the week of the tournament as we realized that our plans from beforehand weren't necessarily going to work as well. But
we threw 80% of it out the window.
We threw a lot of it.
A very generous 80%.
But it was good to get us all at least familiar with the pathways that were in the arena, and so that way when we did need to make those adjustments, it wasn't like completely reimagining the game. It was just making some minor tweaks to make things run a little more smoothly.
And it certainly wasn't just us either. The home team was making some adjustments based on how out-of-towners came and played their arena, where sometimes you start to look at things with fresh eyes, and even though you're used to doing something week after week, and this is how our arena plays, but oh, this other team did this other thing that was different. Maybe we should try that too. So I thought it was really cool to see that and to be able to make those adjustments. But those team talks were absolutely instrumental for us in making sure we were all on the same page and coming up with an idea to keep us together and keep us communicating effectively.
What I love about your story is that you're doing all the things that you would want to, on paper, explain to a team are so important. Making a plan, practicing with one another, and traveling. The fact that you guys traveled to Colorado to make sure you had time together, some of you being in Utah, some of you being in California, I respect that so much, because those are the things that I think set you up to be in a great position going in, and that's really awesome from a preparation standpoint and just a good planning standpoint, and to be versatile enough to adjust on the fly as needed. Now, you're talking about some plane issues or some things coming along as you actually got to New Zealand. So let's talk about actually getting there. You arrive in New Zealand. I'm sure there's a story to be told. So tell me what happened along the way. And then I want to hear about the week of the actual competition. But what did it take to get to New Zealand for you guys?
So, okay. So it was my first time traveling internationally, mine and Thunder's. And I don't know why the camera's not picking me up, but basically no one told me that taking a checked bag onto international flights can be a bit risky. And no one also told me that Jetstar is the worst Australian-based airline ever. So we landed in New Zealand without our bags. Thankfully, we got them all back, but I had to play the entire tournament with 2 pairs of clothes. So
you're welcome.
Yeah, one of those came from Eden, so thank you, Eden. Was my own personal little hell, but we won, so that's all that matters.
Well, similar to the Snuffles and Thunder, I had some travel issues as well. My first flight on a list of connecting flights got delayed, and that messed up my entire schedule. So originally I was going to meet both of them in Hawaii for not super long, like 12 hours, so half a day, just enjoy some food and some relaxation. Instead, I lived in the Los Angeles airport for 16 hours, and I went to Tahiti for a little bit and just kind of went all over the place for a minute. So
I have lived that story, except Tahiti. Tahiti doesn't sound so bad.
You know what? The weather was beautiful. That'll say.
Yep. So lessons that we learned are: don't check bags when you're even traveling within the country. Every single Laserforce tournament that I've been to, someone has had their bags lost by the airline, and that is just far too big a loss rate for me to ever consider checking a bag with any of the airlines.
At least keep your tag shoes in your carry-on.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's big too.
Tag shoes, maybe a couple changes of clothes, but I mean, the good thing, Snuffle, is we did get these shirts when we got down there, so you had a couple extra shirts.
Yeah, that's true.
So you get to New Zealand, and I'd love to know what the week of competition actually looks like. Like, what does the schedule look like, and how many games do you get in at each phase of the tournament?
We played 3 rounds of a round robin tournament. So you play a match, which is 2 games, one from each side, one from red, one from green, against each of the other teams. So there was, we had 6 teams total. So that was 30 total games that we had in each round. The first 2 days, we got through a whole round each. Wednesday, we had something of an abbreviated schedule, so we played most of the round, but finished it off on Thursday, and then we started the double elimination finals. So based on the round robin, everybody was seeded 1 through 6. The top 2 seeds, which ended up being Brisbane and ourselves, got a bye in the first round, so we were sort of already in the winners bracket when that started. Unsurprisingly, the second and third seeds won their first match, so they met us from the I don't know what you call it, the quarterfinals, the qualifiers, whatever, and things kind of shook out the way we thought at the start of finals. But then on the very last day, Friday, we had our match against Brisbane first, and we beat them in both games. We'd beaten them during the week during the round play once, but I think most people would have pegged them as the favorites going into finals. And once we had that win under our belts and we had our ticket punched to the grand finals, we were kind of ready just to take on the world. And we thought, all right, this is our moment, this is our opportunity. It didn't necessarily work out right away because the next time Brisbane fought their way up through the losers bracket and came back to face us in finals, they punched us pretty good the first game. They got an elimination. They got an elimination against us. Yeah, they got an elimination against us, but we were up on points initially. So we knew if we eliminated them the second game that we had a pretty good chance to win the tournament. And I just kind of turned to the guys and said, look, guys, I only want to play one more game against these guys. I don't want this to go to another match. And I felt like we had a chance to beat them in the game before, and we really didn't play that well. So said, we're just going to throw the old strategy out the window, and let's try the strategy that we wanted to do at the start of the week, and it never, ever worked. But we finally figured out what to do. The stars aligned in that last game. Everything clicked, and we got the job done we were supposed to. So it was the definition of peaking at the right time, I think.
Well, that's awesome. And sounds like there were some upsets that happened at various points during this. So let's talk about the round robin to begin with. So how many days do you actually play before you get to the finals?
Just over 3. So 3 and change.
Okay. And you said that you lost your first game, which makes it all the sweeter probably coming back from that. But just getting to the finals, as you've got 3 days of camaraderie and playing with these teams and the rivalries that go along with, what were some of the highlights and what were some of the surprises and upsets that happened along the way to get people to that point of the finals?
Well, right out the gate, the first match that we had to play was had us on the edge of our seats the entire, or at least had everybody in the lobby on the edge of their seats the entire time, because it was the first game of the tournament. Like, no one had played any actual official tournament games yet, and we played against the other U.S. team for the first game of the tournament, and they had beaten us, and we were expecting to have strong competition against them, but have it mostly be decisive. And then we lost the first game of our match, and during the second game of the match, managed to come back kind of against all odds at the very end when we thought that we were going to be kind of struggling to stay alive and struggling to score enough points to take the match. And then at the very end, there's just this total blowout where I had gotten a bunch of points without losing a life, and then I had canceled a nuke, and then after I died, Aiden, who was the only person left, had eliminated 4 of the people on the enemy team in quick succession to take the match and get the 10,000 point bonus from eliminating the enemy team.
Yeah, let Aiden tell the story of his valiant 1v4 stand.
Well, yeah, it was a very stressful end of that game. Like, everyone's dying out. I really didn't want to lose that match. I really didn't want to lose that match. And I see Kodama show up, and I'm like, oh, here, let me give you some shots and you can like shoot people. And he gets some shots and he's like, do you want me to leave? And I'm like, yeah. And he just goes, he like trades with Josiah, and Josiah puts him down and then goes to drop a nuke. And so Kodama just sticks to him and gets the cancel. And I'm like, oh, nuke cancel. And then I hear that he's eliminated out of the game. And I'm like, oh man, I'm in such a bad spot. And I don't know if we're winning this. So I go out, I run into Beans first. And I put Beans down and kill him out of the game. And I was like, oh, they're dying. Oh, okay. So I find Cody. I trade with Cody. And so he puts me down because he was a 3-hit. And then he follows me all the way up into the tower. And so I had a backtrack on him, which with the rules that we play means that he can't shoot me for 2 seconds when I come up. So then there's actually a scene on the camera where you can see me chasing him and he's running away from me. And then I came up and I put down both of the enemy 3-hits, killed them out of the game, came around a corner and saw their last scout remaining there. And I put him down and I was so exhilarated and exhausted. And I was like, please tell me there's no more. And then I hear the game ending sound and I was like, oh, it's over.
So this is one round in, and you're already exhilarated.
Yeah, this is one match in. So this is our first match of the day. This is early Monday morning.
And it was a close one because the very first game that we lost, we survived. I lived with one life. I was the only player left.
Saved our bacon.
Basically saved us because we didn't get eliminated that first game.
That definitely put some wind back in our sails. Said, okay, right, we don't have that big of a mountain to climb for the second game, so let's just pull our heads out and go do what we're supposed to do.
Watching Thunder survive with that one life was also really intense.
It's pretty classic.
You definitely gave some entertainment to anybody watching the Twitch stream for sure, because I know what it's like to be on the other side watching what's going on, and boy, even the audience is right there with you. So
those of us who were watching weren't too sure what was going to happen in that game because Aiden was sitting, I think you were sitting on about 6 lives or so.
I think eight-ish.
Yeah, about 6 to 8 lives, something like that. And there were 4 on the opposing team, but they all had like 1 and 2 lives. So it was Aiden's probably fine. And we thought that maybe they would just run out the clock, but then they all just decided to go attack as they don't know what the live situation is either. So it's one of those classic bits of a kind of dramatic irony, I guess, where the people in the lobby know the situation, but the people in game really don't have any idea what's going on and are trying to push for that elimination.
Were there any games where you guys were in the lobby watching a couple of other teams and feeling like you were right on nerves? Well, tell me about what were some of those other events that really stand out to you?
I think there was. Go ahead. For me, there's a couple games towards the end of the tournament, like in the last day of round play and finals, where Auckland was so close to beating Brisbane, and it's I think we needed them to beat them in order to take first place or something like that. And then also in finals is well, if we can face them over Brisbane, that would be ideal. And they got super close several times, but couldn't quite get to it. So I think that was probably it for me. Those games.
It didn't help that at least one of their players was actively coming down with a bad case of the flu or something.
Yeah, that didn't help.
It kind of took the wind out of their sails a little bit. Felt bad for Auckland.
Well, and truly, some of the hardest matches to watch were in finals when the other U.S. team played against Auckland A, and previous throughout the entire tournament, the other U.S. team took 5 out of 6 games and won all 3 matches against them previously, right?
Yeah,
I think so. I think they did.
And then in finals, Auckland just came back with just such a strong second wind, a really heavy force, and ended up eliminating the other U.S. team out of the tournament to finish in 3rd.
Well, and a quick note on that, over at The Resupply, a podcast that I co-host with my fearless leader guy next door, who was on the Auckland A team. I think he was using that a little bit as fuel because there had been some talk going on that Thursday night, the night before the finals, that the 2 U.S. teams were kind of talking and sharing ideas about how to beat Brisbane, depending on who ended up facing them. We had them first. We said, you guys might end up facing them at some point up the ladder as well. And I think this kind of got back to some of the Auckland guys, and guy next door was like, why aren't they worried about us? Why are they having meetings about beating us? What are we, chopped liver? So I think he had a little revenge in his mind going up against that other U.S. team. Said, you guys aren't getting back to finals. I don't think so.
I heard that story. I got a kick out of it. And just so you know, I'm not pandering when I say this. I want you to see right here in my notes. For more of a deep dive, I'm going to say, go listen to the Resupply. I respect your podcast. You do a great job covering things, and so and you really will get into that deep dive. But I think we've definitely kind of set the stage for what was going on with the round robins and 3 busy days of just getting you to the day of finals. So let's talk once you finally get there. Now, what happened? I think it's fair to say that there were some unexpected turns along the way, but where did each team start going into the finals, and where did the surprises happen as it all shook out?
Brisbane was ranked 1 based on round play going into finals. We were 2. The other US team, US East, was ranked 3. Auckland A was 4. Auckland B was 5, and then the Oakley hybrid team was ranked 6. So we ended up having 2 upsets, if you want to call them that, in finals, just based on the ladder seeding. Is that Auckland ended up leapfrogging to get up into third place, Auckland A, and then we jumped over Brisbane to go from second to first. But I think there wasn't a real big skill gap between really the top 4 teams. And you can imagine a world in which any one of those teams, if they'd gotten a few breaks to go their way, might have ended up winning the tournament. I think the 2 teams that played in the grand final, us and Brisbane, I believe were the two best teams, but it was real close. There were games that were on a razor's edge, but I already gave my account what happened in finals. The rest of you guys should talk.
The thing that was really daunting for me was the fact that during round play we had kind of gone back and forth with Brisbane. We lost our first match to them pretty decisively. We were in the actual game we were fighting pretty well, but if you look at the scoreboards, we were decisively beaten in both of those games. And then the second match we played against them, we was it the first game or the second game that we killed Andrew?
There's a second.
It's the second.
Yeah.
So in the first game we had won just on points, and then the second game we had eliminated their ammo very early in the game, which is absolutely crippling to a team, and especially if it happens early, always ends in them dying. And so we had taken the second match we played against them, and then the third match of round play that we had to play against them was actually at the very end, which was the round that we played like during the day of finals, but just before. And so we had played against them the morning of finals to finish off round play and had lost that match also. So in the same day that we had to fight them for the actual spot to win the tournament, we had already lost one match against them. And then in the first time, meeting them the first time in round play, had barely scraped by and beat them just on points in both games. And so if things had been going the back and forth that we were expecting, we might have ended up having to play that last match. But that Hail Mary at the end was the one that really sealed it, because we were losing that match from game 1, and just the last ditch effort at the end to throw them off and to play more aggressively and to try to kill them out. It worked perfectly.
Yeah, that was kind of an intimidating thing for me was if you look at finals, every match in finals was decided 6-0. So when we lost that first game against Brisbane, I was like, oh man. But I knew that we were up on points. We didn't have that big of a mountain to climb. We just had to get our heads in. And I told everyone, I was like, listen, like we still got this. My leg was a little injured, and I was like, I'm not playing another match, guys. Settle it here, figure it out, make it work. So,
well, and I tried to remind everybody too, going into that last game, I said, the pressure's not on us. The pressure's on them. They have to win this game in order to go on in the tournament. If we beat them now, that's it. We're done. So let's go get them.
And I think that pressure made a really big difference too. Like they also weren't playing the same as they were all week because they were in the losers bracket and because that was their elimination match. I think the fact that that pressure was on them helped us take the lead in that match and really control the tempo.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about like the rest of you guys, but me personally going into that last game, I felt like no pressure, nothing at all. I felt so confident that we were going to win that game. And like, not even for any reason, I just felt like throughout the week, game by game, match by match, we were just improving nonstop, which each day you could feel it in the play. And so I just felt super confident that last day because I felt like that last day we were just playing super well. You know, against like the Eastern team match we had, I thought we played that super solid. It was our best match against them, I feel like. And then we 6-0'd Brisbane, and doing that against Brisbane is always a good feeling. So even losing that first game of the last match, I just like, it's just like, yeah, we're going to win the second game. It's no problem.
Well, and I think Snuffles kind of nailed it on the head when he talked about improvement, because I think for our team, you know, when we talk about that we lost the first game of the tournament and then came back to win the whole thing, I think that was almost had to be our destiny, where we came from, I mean, three different sites, almost 4, because Slaughtermelon moved to Utah pretty recently. He played in Colorado and lived in Colorado up until very recently. So you could almost call us a team from 4 different places, and then pair that with that, DK and Odin's Fist lost their Laserforce site years ago and don't have a regular place to practice. And even Kodama doesn't, he kind of lost his and doesn't really have a great place to practice either. So, you take that and then contrast it to Brisbane and Auckland, who they have their full team. They're all from the same place. They're practicing regularly on a weekly basis. I think one of the things that we talked about, one of the things we understood as a team was that we weren't going to walk into this tournament and just start beating everybody right away. We had to come together. We had to figure out how to play together. We had to adapt and improve constantly. And I think that's one of the things that really carried us through was we really, although we weren't winning every game, we weren't winning every match, we all really felt that improvement. We felt our team building. And, I feel like for a lot of us, we'd lose a game and be like, okay, no big deal. Of course we lost that game. We haven't practiced together ever. We've never all played on the same team. We're from 4 different places, but we know we can, we just keep improving and figuring it out. And that's really, I think, what worked for us.
And that comes back all the way full circle to like why we built the team in the first place, because one of the reasons why we all got together is because we knew that the 6 of us would be level-headed enough and willing to come out of every single game, win or lose, and talk about what we could have done differently, what we could have done better, what needs to be adjusted in order to beat this particular team or this other team. And it's not, I mean, I think I speak for most of us when I say that we've never played on a team that had all 6 players on the same page after every game, trying to figure out how to get better every single time, regardless of what was going on during the week. And I think that really showed all the way up into the end, because we spent a lot of time in between games and afterwards going at, like, when we would go out to dinner and talk, we were always bouncing ideas off of one another and trying to figure out what was going to work better against certain teams and how we were going to actually pull it out in the end.
It's easy to feel confident and to feel bonded with your team when you're winning and everything is okay. But the real test comes in if you lose a game or you lose a match or something like that. Is it going to devolve into a shouting match, or can we just kind of dissect this rationally and figure out what's going on? And that's the kind of very difficult thing, more difficult than people would think to pull out of a team. And it's not shade to any other team in particular when I say this, but I feel like having lost that first game in finals against Brisbane, a less mentally tough team might have said, well, we blew our shot, Brisbane's going to win. Because I think that was kind of the prevailing attitude on the Twitch stream was, okay, Briz figured it out. They're going to run over people like they always do. And we just said, no, we're just going to make a quick adjustment and go from there.
Yeah, I agree. I certainly didn't. I don't think any of us were even fazed by that game. We just looked at it and said, okay.
Which is weird, but
here's what they did.
Agree.
Yeah, here's what they did. Here's what we did. Let's fix this and move on. And I don't think any of us felt nervous or problematic at all. We just, here's what we got to do to fix it.
Yeah.
Them beating us was just pouring gas on the flame.
Yeah. Well, and every time during the week that we kind of felt like we were maybe getting a tad overconfident, like the next game we would just get hit and we'd say, okay, no, we need to not mess around. Our heads need to be focused 100% of the time. But sorry, Odin, what were you saying?
Yeah, I think us, like, even though we got Eel in that first game, I think the fact that we won by, or like we were winning on points, really helped kind of keep things in perspective. And also, like, even though we lost, we played the game well and properly to where there was a very clear, like, this is exactly, like, we know this went wrong. We know this is what we need to do differently. At the start of the second game, DK said, okay, we need to try doing this because, Rusty's kind of figured this play out. And we were all just kind of like, yep, that makes sense. Yeah. And we didn't have to talk about it too much. We all had a very clear idea of what had been going on in the games. And so
it wasn't an hour-long discussion with diagrams or anything else. I'm just like, okay, you go here, you go here, you go here, and then we'll just meet in the middle.
Yep. and it worked. And I think like the fact that I got to play on a full team where everyone could have cool heads and not freak out and tilt was very refreshing.
Nice.
Well, I wanted to ask you guys what you do for a mental reset so that you don't let one game set the tone for everything else. But I think you've kind of just pointed out that it really comes down to that rational thinking and just strategizing. And it sounds like that's really where you guys excelled.
We all kept each other in check.
There was a couple of I have a tendency to need a second to cool down after some games. Like if I get really frustrated in a game, then I'll take a moment and walk outside. But it's really just figuring out how to properly dispose of any like angst or anxiety is really how, because there's a lot of teams where they come out of a game and they're frustrated and they take it out on their teammates, and that's never like it's never constructive. And even if you're right, it doesn't help anybody. And so it's much better to just take a second to cool off, come back, talk to your team civilly and friendly, and try to make everything work. Because even if you're upset at each other, you're not going to win by being upset at each other. You're going to win by moving past that and finding a way to be friends again and still play the game really, really well.
And some of it's just finding the right personalities too, because I have seen teams, the aforementioned example of Detroit in 2019, where they could get super intense about things, but for whatever reason, they're able to just kind of transport that and turn it into energy for a game. But I don't think any of us are really like that. We're much more the we need to talk things out, support one another, build each other up type of environment rather than, light a fire under somebody else.
Yeah. And that was kind of like the perspective that I put myself in, like was my goal was to be a support for the team. Whatever the team needed, I wanted to enable it as best as possible. And that I kind of try to hold that true both in game and out of game. I want to be there like, don't worry guys, like we can make these wins happen. And also, to kind of ground people, because I don't think anyone on this team is super guilty of it, but everyone has a tendency to kind of get a little carried away at times. And, when you win a bunch of matches and you're like feeling really good, it's like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. It's like, well, let's slow down. Let's stick to what we talked about and play the game right. And yeah, I mean, that's not something I would be able to do on a team where people didn't have their mental in check. Like some people just, they blow up way too hard. They won't listen to you. And so like really just the personalities meshing really brought it together.
And I think that's like one of the big talking points when we first like made this team was like, none of us have big, huge egos per se. Like we all are fairly accountable. And I felt like throughout the tournament, we all were not just accountable for each other, but accountable for ourselves. We all had games where we played really well, and that's great. But we all also had games where we didn't play as well, and we were honest about it. It's like, hey guys, I played like trash that game. I'm so sorry. I know what I need to do to fix it though. Like, and then we go, and then it'd be better the next game. And I think that was very nice and very refreshing as well.
It also made it a lot easier to give constructive criticism to each other.
Yes.
because like trying to give constructive criticism to somebody who is going to blow up or get defensive or anything like that is always really, really difficult. And so having a team that knows that it's not personal, and if I tell you after game that you should be doing this instead of this, it's nothing against you as a person. It's just an idea that I think is going to work better for the team. And so there was a lot of communicating with each other and figuring out what other players need from you in order to play better. Because when it comes down to it, this is a team game where you're trying to coordinate as a cohesive unit. And if somebody needs something from you in order to do their job properly, then it's on you to support them and be able to do that for them. And I think that we all understood that part of the game well enough to be able to make those quick adjustments in between games and talk about what was working, what wasn't, and not letting any of it actually get to go to our heads.
I think you've got a key ingredient to the secret sauce right there. And it clearly it worked for you. And I want to just shout out how the final standings went. So in 6th place, it was Oakley-ish, followed by 5th place went to Auckland B. 4th place was USA East. 3rd place was Auckland A. And then 2nd place, Brisbane, and of course, 1st place, USA West. So when it finally got down to those last 2 teams in the finals match, was there any one moment where you really felt it turning in your favor and you said, we've got this? Or was it really a nail biter right until that last second?
Well, there was kind of, in that last game of the match, there was this moment where we realized that our opening strategy worked better than we could have ever hoped. They had not anticipated our move, so much so that they sent their resupply up and they had to go straight through our entire team because they weren't expecting us to be where we were. And that was where we just kind of realized, oh, we are in control of this game right now. And from there, it was a matter of pushing. And there was what really made it a nail biter was there was a moment in a while in the middle of the game where the other team walled. They played super defensively. They stacked up in a room together and just tried to last the game and not be eliminated. And we knew, well, little did we know that there actually was a potential to win points wise, but the thought in the game when you don't have all the information available is there's no way we're going to overcome an Elam without Elaming them. So we needed to eliminate them, and you get all that adrenaline in game, and so people are just running straight into the wall and getting shot, and so so much that they closed an 8 to 10,000 point gap before we were able to break through the wall. And so we had to kind of recollect, and we say, okay, we're in control of this game. We don't have to play their game. This is what we need to do. This is how we're going to do it. We're gonna slow down for a second, take a breath, and execute our strategy. And then it came time to do it, and we executed it perfectly. We broke through the wall. We did everything that we needed to, and we were like, okay, this is our game now. We did what we had to. We took care of business, and now we just got to close it out.
And those were quick adjustments that we had to make in 1 to 2 sentences to each other, because in the heat of the game, we don't have time to sit down and have a conversation about that. But it's just, we're walling, send both 3 hits upstairs. Odin and I are going to go do this. And we just approached it in a way that was about as well as we could have played against it. There were some little adjustments we could have made to crack the wall a little bit more effectively. But it was particularly satisfying because in the past, a lot of American teams in particular have struggled against the super defensive wall formation where they will stack up 3 or 4 players to all get their guns pointed in the same direction. In fact, going back to the 2006 internationals, that was Auckland and Brisbane playing in the finals, Auckland A essentially lost because of that, because the other team had set up, because Brisbane had set up a wall. At the time they called it the totem pole because they had 3 people stacked on top of each other. All shooting in the same direction, but they weren't able to effectively crack that. So I felt that it was extra satisfying that we got the victory against the tactic that had really kind of messed with a lot of other teams. But they had some disadvantages in setting up the wall. Is that the other earlier turning point in that game was we knew we'd eliminated their medic fairly early, and I was still pretty healthy on live. So I said, guys, just fill up. Their medic's out super early. We're just going to grind them down bit by bit. And we did. It took a little bit longer than we might have hoped, but I think we ended up winning with just a little over a minute left, if I recall correctly.
In many ways, it was the most poetic ending to that tournament that we could have asked for, because it was the one game where we decided to go back to our roots and try the thing that we thought was going to work from the get-go. And it worked perfectly, and all of the cards were dealt in our favor from the start. And then especially from the perspective of the defensive side of our team, Odin, DK, and I, we don't know what the situation with their medic is because we're not the ones that are attacking them. And so we knew that off the start they had to run the gauntlet through us, but we didn't know how well they had stabilized or not. And when we found out, I think it was 4.5, 5 minutes into the game, that their medic was dead and we had 10 minutes to play with to try to get rid of all of them, it was just like it was relieving, but we knew that it was go time. Like we knew that there was no dilly dallying that could happen. We needed to start, because the one thing that Brisbane is really really good at doing is recovering and being able to put up a fight even when they're behind. And so when they decided to build the totem pole and put up the wall, it was like we had to be very like proactive and aggressive, but we also had to keep our cool, because if you start to panic when they're walling and you know that you're not getting in, then that's all she wrote, and they're going to run the clock out and you're going to lose. And then at the very end, the person with the most lives in their team who's running around trying to not get eliminated is Rusty, who's widely revered as the best player in the world. And so to end a game on him fighting for his life to fight all of us,
and putting up a pretty good last stand too. I have to say,
very good last stand. I think he ended the game on like 3 shots or something like that. And so he really did expend everything he had to try to hold on to his title. And we just we were good enough. That was the thing that was the most satisfying about the win, is that they didn't roll over and let it happen. They made us work for it, and that made it way sweeter coming out of that game, because there was nothing to there was no question in anyone's mind that we actually deserved the win and that we were the best in the business at that tournament.
Yeah, then them deciding to wall was I got a little giddy, honestly. I was like, okay, I got to calm people down, because I go up and you can see me go up in the tower and go in one time, and I'm like, why are we're doing this so wrong? And I'm like, we need to slow down and take a second and get it figured out. But for one thing, the wall is a play that they make out of desperation. Like Brisbane walls really, really well, but they don't wall if they're confident. They don't wall if they're like, oh yeah, we can beat them. And so like knowing that they were walling, I was like, oh yeah, they're scared of us. They're on the back foot. And then also
it really was the only play that was left to them. And honestly, I salute them for executing it as well as they did, because they definitely had a chance against us. If we didn't play as close to perfectly against that as we could, they definitely could have like run up the clock on us if we hadn't approached it correctly and targeted specifically the players that you needed to. Without even talking about it, Kodama knew to focus on Rusty, and Slaughtermelon knew to focus on Glader to get their heavy and their ammo down as quickly as possible. So that way we could start just cracking them out one at a time.
Yeah, and so like definitely it was the right play for them, but it was just so like satisfying knowing that we pushed them to that point. And then also, ever since I first saw the wall in 2017, Nats, was the first time I experienced it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is something that can be dealt with. Like there's a very clear way to deal with this. And then over the years, I'd seen so many people not be able to play against the wall. And so when the wall finally happened and I was on ammo where I could like talk to people and organize things, I was so excited. I was like, people were coming back. I'm like, you're going to go here and you're going to go there. We're going to do this and Caleb's going to nuke and then we're all going to go in. And then to make sure that everything went perfectly, I went up and went in with everyone. And I was actually the one who broke through on the nuke. And so like being there in the middle of it, organizing everything was like so exciting for me, because I've been waiting since 2017 to break a wall. It was against Brisbane. And I was like, okay, this is great.
And let's not discount the fact that Rusty had a negative hit diff against 2 of the players in the tournament, only 2 of them, and one of them was Thunder. And the very last shot of the tournament is Thunder shooting Rusty to kill him and win the tournament.
Thunder killed Rusty.
Yep.
Our hero.
And also true to form, Rusty also killed me right before he died, so he had to get that last second medikit.
Oh, that was so funny. I was like, Rusty. I knew Rusty was in nest. I was like, DK, go kill Rusty.
And I tried.
You can't win a tournament without actively being in the Dead Medics Club. I feel like it would be. It's like I said, it was perfectly poetic. You had to die at the very end because you're the medic.
We had to sacrifice our medic.
It fortunately actually gave me a nice 30-second head start to go out and have my emotional meltdown, because it just everything kind of started hitting me at once. And Odin said he saw the wall for the first time in 2017. That was the year Sacramento was hosting, and I had real aspirations of getting my team to beat Brisbane in our home arena. I really wanted to get it done. we didn't get it done. I was disappointed, but I don't think I really realized until after this tournament was over kind of how big a chip on my shoulder I developed over losing that. And as I was telling my team in chat last night, this was my 10th tournament I played against Rusty, and finally got her up and finally beat him, which was something that I'd wanted for a long time. But really, I should say it was all down to you guys, because I was trying not to fight him that much during the week.
It was one of the funniest moments for me, actually, because I came out of the game and I was like, oh my god, we won, and I started hugging all my teammates and I was like, where's DK? I need to go give him a hug. And I ran into the party room to go look for you, and you were just face down on the floor, like bawling into your arms, and I was like, I'll wait, I'll give him a second and I'll hug him later.
Well, there's a crazy amount of emotion and passion and enthusiasm. And I think that's really evident just hearing you guys recount the experience that you have. So I'd really love to know just what it is that drives each of you to play laser tag this intensely, and certainly to justify traveling across the globe to compete in something like this. What makes it worth it to you?
All
right, geez, swinging with the hard questions.
Go ahead, Caleb.
I guess I can say since 2015, that was my first tournament ever in Loveland, Colorado. I had been playing laser tag for about 6 months at the time. I didn't really have a lot of friends. I didn't really have a big social life. Laser tag was my only extracurricular, and just everything I do today is stemmed from laser tag. Funny enough, I co-own a fun center with Thunder and a couple other guys, and we worked with Dallin, and I play laser tag like almost weekly and travel for it, and it's what got me out of my shell as a kid. I used to have terrible social anxiety, and just a million things stem from laser tag. So that's been a big driving force to try and be one of the best at it, and hopefully one day I'll get there.
I think for me, I don't even know. I started playing when I was 12, weekly when I was 12, and so it's been, you know how old I am. It's been 21 years that I've been playing weekly. And I don't know. I just can't get enough of it. I think my favorite thing about really playing competitive and playing Space Marines is that the skill ceiling of this game is something I think few people can comprehend, and that I have never felt like I hit the ceiling and I was as good as I could be. I've never even felt close to that I was as good of a player as I could be. Every time I play, I feel like I'm getting better and I'm always learning things. And I think that's my favorite part of the game, is that it is just so wildly, unbelievably complex. And it just, I hate, as a person, like I like to finish things, I like to complete things, I really like to be good at things, and I've never felt like I completed Space Marines and I really figured it out. I learn something every game and I love it.
Yeah, I'm a very competitive person. I've always done sports, like tons of sports. I've played pretty much every sport at some point in time. I got really into volleyball in high school. And then on the other end, I was a gamer because I loved strategy and thinking about everything like just steps and steps and steps ahead. I competed in StarCraft 2 events in high school, and I kind of just craved something that was like physically exhilarating, that had you like physically there, involved, something where like your athletic ability like can mean something, but that had those many layers of like tactics and strategy, similar to things like StarCraft. And for a while, I played paintball, which was like pretty fun and exciting. But then I was introduced to Space Marines 5, and just the level of complexity with the different classes and the roles and the way that you play the field and the different objectives. You can win by eliminating the enemy team. You can win by outscoring them and surviving. There's like so many things that you can do to support each other. I think if you ask like 3 different people in the community, what is the role of this position, they'll all three give you a different answer. And they might be along the same lines, but everyone kind of has their own vision of how they would like to perform in that role. Um, and just like the level of nuance to the sport, and like the fact that I can just keep learning things, the fact that we can keep talking about things, like we've had, like we talked about having all those team meetings, we would talk about like game philosophy and how things should work, and as a general rule we all had a lot of similar ideas of how things played out, but just like even saying things out loud has allowed me to consider so many different alternatives and ideas, and there's so much to explore. And then there's like another level of passion for it for me because when I started, the one of the main players who had helped me out was Autumn, who is currently my partner. We've been together for a long time now, so we kind of I have an extra level of passion for the game that we were able to like play and grow together and grow as players. So there's just my life at this point.
Much like Thunder, I also started when I was 12, but that was even longer ago because I'm even older than Thunder. But similar story to a lot of the rest of you. I grew up just a very competitive person. I played a lot of sports growing up. I just wasn't really good enough to back up a lot of those competitive instincts at most of the sports that I played. But then I found laser tag at 12, and all of a sudden there was something that I was decent enough at. I certainly wasn't the best starting out, but I felt like some potential and wanted to learn about this game because it was also enmeshed with a lot of other things, with a kind of hybrid between esports and athletics. And I was, into Star Wars as a kid, and I kind of started thinking about Warhammer 40,000 and all kinds of things that were just like related to the Laserforce zeitgeist, I guess. And then one of my friends told me, well, there's another game mode called Space Marines. And as soon as I heard that term, I was like, we get to be Space Marines? I'm in. Sign me up. This is going to be cool. And then between running competitions at our home site in Sacramento in the late 90s, before some of these kids were born, just developed a spark for the game. And then once I started traveling to national tournaments, I'm hooked. I'm in. This means a lot. And then the first time I had the chance to play against international players under the international rules, and I went up against Rusty and Night Owl and Dragon in 2002, then I kind of really discovered I thought the bar was here, but it was up here. So that just drove me to excel and try to do better as went down through the years. And I've had to kind of take a hiatus from the game a couple of times because I've lost my laser tag sight on 3 different occasions now. And it's very frustrating not to be able to play this thing I love every week, but it brings a lot of meaning to my life to give me a reason to stay in shape and to train for events, to go and see people who are in a lot of ways are now my closest friends because I see them so much at competitions, and to go travel to places that are exciting or maybe don't seem exciting at first, but are cool when you get there.
Yeah, the thing that keeps me coming back is definitely, excuse me, is definitely the people. Obviously I have the competitive spirit that we've all talked about. I think that's kind of just a given for all the competitive players, that you have to have a competitive spirit to really be into the game. But what does it for me is that as far as I can tell, Space Marines 5 is one of the most emotionally intimate like competitive sports that a person can play. The nature of the game, you are always having some kind of interaction with another person that's unique for that moment and is important and means something, and it happens 300 times during the 15 minutes that you play. And then you also, because the scene is run, played, and organized by the players, there's no like looming presence from any higher ups to perform a particular way. There's no real stakes in the game, which means that in the current stage, really the only thing you're playing for is for like personal glory and to go and hang out with all the people that you love to spend time with. But this is one of the only competitive scenes that I've perceived where my relationship with the people who I've played on a team with is as good as my relationship with the people that I constantly have to play against. And so like the I've seen so many other sports and talked to so many people who play other sports, and there's just always some kind of animosity and us versus them mentality that people have. But I think there's something about the nature of competitive Space Marines that makes it so that even when you're fighting for your life trying to beat somebody, it's very, very fun to play against good players. It's not necessarily frustrating or it doesn't I mean it gets frustrating at times, but the nature of the game makes it so that if you really want to enjoy it, there's no situation playing the game that you can't have some amount of fun. And because like I said, it's so interactive, the fun that you're experiencing is with a ton of just very unique, interesting people that I've said it a million times to everybody that all of my favorite people in the world come from this community. And it just like there's no other setting I've put myself in that's given me this much just ambient joy whenever I'm involved in something that has to do with laser tag or talking to laser tag people or talking about laser tag with other people. And it just there's in the same way that Thunder was saying, it seems like there's no skill ceiling, at least not that any of us have come anywhere near even being able to see. It also, there's no limit to the nuances that you can explore in the game. There's always going to be an evolving strategy, an evolving player base, an evolving teamwork dynamic. There's so much room to explore the game that it really just is the gift that keeps on giving. There is no bottom of the barrel in terms of playing laser tag. Every single game is worth playing and very fun, regardless of the level of competition. And that's the thing that gets me spending all my money to go and fly out to different places to go and play in tournaments. It would be interesting to see how much of my personal funds gets funneled into sending me places to play laser tag.
It's best not to think about
mine.
that.
I have to pay money to fly around. My best friend is Thunder. I gotta go visit Thunder, play laser tag.
All right, bring us home, Snuffles.
So my laser tag origin story, basically I started in 2017 when I turned 18. My older brother, Tandor, who also plays competitively, he was like, hey, we've been playing laser tag again weekly. You should like come sometime. I think you'll really like it. And so I did start playing and I fell in love almost instantly. Especially after my first tournament, I kind of cost my team that I was playing on. I was playing with very good players at the time. Kodama was one of them. After that tournament, I kind of felt like I had lost us that tournament with how bad I was. And that's what like sparked the fire for me, was like, I never want to be that guy. Like, I want to be the reason we're winning tournaments. And so all my best friends have come from laser tag. These guys, people from my site, my relationship with my brother really improved because of this. And just, it's the competitive aspect just keeps me going. It's something I look forward to. Whenever there's a tournament coming up, it's all I can think about 24/7 for months ahead of time. It's the only thing on my mind. And not only that, but it's a great community. So many people, just they're family to me. These guys, they're all family. So it's really just completely changed my life for the better.
Well, you guys have got some tremendous heart indeed. And I'm so delighted for your win, and congratulations again for being our first place champions of the 2023 National Laserforce Internationals. And I always like to wrap things up with a little bit of rapid fire tag talk. Now that's tougher when we've got 6 of you, but I'd love to throw a couple of questions at you, some quick questions to you, some quick answers back, and I'll just point you out and ask everybody to give an answer to these questions. Are you guys game?
Let's do it.
All right.
Go.
My first question is, what is your favorite game format other than SM5? DK.
Tough one, but I'm gonna have to say photon emulation.
Oh, you are the man.
It's classic.
This
Hey,
guy.
I don't care. I'll pander to the host. You guys can't stop me.
Get a load of gray hair over
We'll
here.
stop right there. Good answer. No. Okay. I want to hear favorite format other than SM5. Snuffles.
Okay, if I say Wabbit season, I'll get lynched. So either D&D or probably Shadows in the Dark, and which is basically Shadows, but you turn all the arena lights off.
Mhm.
It's way fun. Dangerous but fun.
Odin's Fist.
I really have become a huge fan of Color Conquest recently. I wasn't a huge fan at first, but we played some games that were a lot smaller, and it was just a few people who were like competitive players, and it was really exciting. So.
Thunder.
Oh, I love SM4. Space. I don't think it should be called Space Marines 4 because the games are nothing alike, but I love playing Space Marines 4.
Okay. Kodama.
Definitely Midnight Shadows. Coming back to the you play Shadows. You turn all the arena lights off. It's missiles only.
Missiles
and
only.
You play it at midnight, and the goal of the game is just to scare the crap out of everybody else in the game.
I think the pack generation makes a big difference for me. I think if we're playing Gen 6 or 7, Midnight Shadows goes harder.
There's nothing more terrifying than walking around through the arena and then your vest just starts lighting up and making a ton of noise out of nowhere, and then you explode.
Fair enough. Slaughtermelon.
This is gonna sound super cheesy, but just the standard red versus blue game mode. It's what brought me into tag, and it's not how I'll be leaving tag, but it's what brought me into tag.
Excellent. Now I'm going to give you this question and say Auckland's off the table to say as an answer, because I'm sure right now it would be everybody's. But my question is, where is the coolest place you've ever traveled for tag other than Auckland that you just came back from? Where's the coolest? DK?
Brisbane, no question. Going to Australia was 2 of the best trips of my life, and it was an amazing set of laser tag trips and a very cool arena to play in. So no question.
Snuffles?
Probably Syracuse, because got to go to New York City for the first time after that. So that was way cool.
Odin's Fist.
Okay, this is going to be a really unhinged answer, but Detroit was really crazy for me because I've traveled a bit before, but I went to Detroit and got to like see an RV on fire in a field for the first time and like a bunch of crazy stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, this is wild.
Okay. Thunder?
I would probably say Syracuse as well, because I mean it's not in New York City, but we traveled to New York City after, which was great. My runner-up would be New Orleans. There's a site in New Orleans and in Baton Rouge, and I've been to both of them, and that was also really excellent.
Yes, it was. Nice answer. Kodama.
My heart's with DK as well. It definitely going to Brisbane was a very fun experience. The players over there are very welcoming, and it's fun to hang out with them and have them show you around and show you all the good food places nearby, and sometimes being afraid for your life because there's a bird outside is kind of fun.
All right,
Those
and
birds were
Slaughtermelon.
terrifying.
Well, my answer's sort of cheating here, but because I'm not local to Loveland anymore, I'm allowed to say my favorite place to go for laser tag is Loveland.
Okay.
It's a nice taste of home. So.
All right, we'll take it. We'll accept it.
Okay. Now, we took Auckland off the table just because I imagine coming right off the heels of this, you got to say that's a super cool place to visit. So I want to know, what was the coolest thing other than laser tag that you did while you were in Auckland? DK?
Well, it wasn't in Auckland proper. A bunch of us traveled down south a little ways in New Zealand and went to Rotorua, most specifically to visit some of the sites around there. and going to both the hot springs that were there, where we got to explore some very, very sulfurous steaming pools and even visit some mud baths and some hot spas and things like that, was really nice. And then we got to have a cultural experience in a local Maori village, where they fed us dinner, did a whole presentation for us, and we got to see some glowworms along the river. So both of those were pretty magical experiences. And going to Hobbiton was pretty cool as well.
What did you like, Snuffles?
I would also say Hobbiton. It's been my dream since I was a kid to go there, so I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. But on the way to New Zealand, we also stayed in Hawaii for a few days, and Hawaii is magical. It's
All right, Odin's Fist.
I'm going to cheat a bit and say that I don't really have a favorite thing that we did there. I think my favorite thing was just the fact that we had a whole week afterwards to hang out with a bunch of like my favorite people in the world, like team differences aside. We got to hang out, have a great time, really connect on a personal level. And I think that was just amazing.
Okay. Thunder?
I'm going to say Hawaii as well. We stayed. I mean, New Zealand was incredible, but I wasn't in New Zealand much past the tournament. I have 3 kids and a wife and 2 jobs, and I have a lot to do. So I didn't get to stay for a month like everyone else, but I really enjoyed being in Hawaii for the few days leading up to the tournament. It was really relaxing.
Very nice. Gadama?
I took a hike closer to the end of our trip, like after most people had already started making their way back home, just with my mom and one of the other players from up here. And it was just like, obviously New Zealand's landscape is gorgeous, but taking this hike, it was up to the top of a waterfall, and it was like a spiritual experience for me. It was so peaceful and tranquil that I like told them both to go leave and just like leave me alone.
Get out of here, man.
And I went and I like walked out in the middle of the river that feeds into the waterfall and just like sat on a rock for 15 minutes and closed my eyes, and it was just like I've never felt so in touch with nature than in that moment.
Very nice. And Slaughtermelon?
I'd have to say rafting. We did this huge waterfall in New Zealand, and I've never done rafting before. It was just a thrilling experience that really summarizes what kind of life I like to live, and that's just all in, no dipping your toes into the water, just fully submerged.
Very nice. I ask that because I wholeheartedly believe some of the best experiences that I've had, I wouldn't have had if I didn't go certain places for laser tag. Laser tag has brought me to some very cool things. And it sounds like your experience in Auckland did that for you guys. And I keep referencing them as Auckland, but you know what? They deserve a better shout out. Could you just kind of give a shout out to the arena you played and the hospitality they gave you?
Yeah, thank you so much for hosting us, Auckland, and big thanks to Ruan and Andre, the site operators, who were incredibly helpful and responsive to us. Were so welcoming, got us, all kinds of stuff that we needed on a day-to-day basis. We're always refilling the water pitcher. It was really, really helpful opening their doors. And to Guy Next Door for being the tournament organizer, getting everything together, trying to herd these cats, because I know that there were difficult situations that came up over the week of trying to organize all these different players from different places, many of whom were not comfortable driving on the opposite side of the road. So there were a lot of things that needed to be coordinated. And that was on top of him having to do that and being sick. So thank you so much to all the Auckland people and to Laserforce for hosting us.
Definitely.
And a huge shout out to Morange for giving such amazing color commentary during the week whenever he was casting on the stream. That was like, my mom and my grandma came with us to the tournament, but stayed in their Airbnb, and they watched the stream from the Airbnb and said that it was so much more entertaining to watch when he was there. And they both have never played the game. They just hear my sister and I rambling about it all the time. And so a big thanks to him for making it more palatable to outsiders and more fun for us when we go back and watch our games over, because listening to him pop off about all the things that were happening is really, really cool.
Yeah. Makes it way more accessible when somebody can describe things as well as he did. Even if he didn't know exactly what was going on in all the games, at least he could create a picture for the people who were watching.
Yeah.
And having the cameras there was helpful
yeah.
too. Once we had people like being able to switch between the camera views effectively, we actually captured quite a few really great moments from the tournament on camera in addition to the scoreboard. And it's amazing to be able to go back and rewatch that. And it's all available right now on YouTube, by the way. If you go to the Laserforce Tournaments YouTube page, you can rewatch all of the streams that we did over the 5 days of the tournament, and even some of the practice night and for funsies games that we played were there after the fact. And I've started pulling from those YouTube clips, trying to isolate some of the games. Selfishly, I started with all of our games because those are the ones I want to go back and watch the most. But I have long-term plans of trying to splice them all up and then maybe do some commentary tracks on some of them as well to get kind of a retrospective.
Very good. And what is the name of the arena you were playing at?
I think it's just called Laserforce Wairau Valley is the official name of the site.
Well, that's awesome that they showed you such hospitality and giving some shout outs to exactly the right people. Yes, certainly. Guy next door, I know, was leading the charge here. And are there any other final shout outs or final thanks that any of you guys would like to give to anybody in this tournament?
Shout out to my boys in Loveland. Miss you guys. That's it.
Well, and thank you to Loveland for practicing with us too, because we got tested very well, I thought, by basically playing against the best Loveland players and their kind of presumed A-team lineup. Had they been able to send a full team to New Zealand, who they would have picked. So playing against them in their home arena, that was the kind of like testing ground that sort of tempered us and got us clicking the right cylinders. Because if you're playing against people where you're just running over them constantly, you don't learn a whole lot. But when you're against a team that really wants to beat you and is very skilled, that's really helpful for development. Big thanks to Night Owl for being the head ref on the last day of the tournament, even though his team had been eliminated, and just having somebody who's getting the refs in place and managing the games is really important. Also to Kelly, who was there, Redneck Tech's partner, was instrumental in getting people moved in and out of the game and really sped things up for us. That was super helpful for Beans, and of course for Russell Maniac, maintaining the stat site for us is amazing and makes the tournament run so much smoother and gets things going in that direction. And I feel like I'm leaving people out, because I always do, but it was so great.
Jetstar, you're forgetting to thank Jetstar.
Yeah, and of course Jetstar. And I do honestly, I really want to thank the Brisbane team as well for being really good sports, for being very magnanimous in defeat. Because I know what a hard thing that is, and to have to go and shake hands after you just lost a very tough match and that kind of thing. But I really appreciate Rusty and Taipan in particular for just after my 5-minute breakdown, just giving me a big hug. And that was a special moment to be able to say thank you for playing us, guys. So big shout out to everybody.
Also, a secondary shout out to G&D for organizing all of the extracurricular activities afterwards. Because
I was trying to throw that in too, because there was a lot that went into that.
Having one person be the one to like make all the reservations and tell everybody what time they need to be somewhere was made the large group activities a lot easier for everybody who wasn't him.
Absolutely.
I'd give a big shout out to Autumn, not just for being a super supportive partner, but for making sure my hair was on fleek for the tournament. And
mine too.
And DK's, and also for helping design our team jerseys, because I feel like they played a very important role in our victory. So
absolutely.
Very good. Anybody else have any final thoughts? No. Well,
nope.
I just want to thank you all for being with me and sharing the insights and the behind the scenes of this tournament. That is Team USA West, your first place champions from the Laserforce Internationals 2023. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Tivia.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Laser Unfocused Tag Talk. Listen for more episodes on the first and third Friday of each month. Want to be a guest on an upcoming episode? Find out more and follow my blog and website at TiviaChickLovesLaserTag.com.